Hi, this is David for 10 on Tactics, brought to you by tacticsandtrials.com. Considering all the recent news regarding border crossings and deportation, we felt it was important to provide a very brief overview of the laws involving border management and deportation proceedings. Do all countries have border control? All countries implement some form of border management or immigration control, especially those that are internationally recognized as sovereign states. So while physical or staffed border checkpoints might be absent in some areas of the world, immigration rules and policies still exist and apply to foreign nationals entering or staying in a country. The primary purpose of immigration control is to regulate who enters, stays in, or leaves a country, with the following key objectives: national security, prevent entry of individuals who may pose a security threat, e.g., terrorism, criminal activity, human trafficking, drug cartels, and monitor and track cross-border movement. Sovereignty and law enforcement. Uphold a nation's laws regarding entry, residence, and employment of foreign nationals. Also, establish some form of control over unauthorized or undocumented migration. Economic management. Allow entry of skilled workers or individuals in labor shortages and prevent labor market saturation. This will also reduce pressure on public services, which will deeply impact the people living in the country. Public health, screen incoming travelers for contagious diseases, or implement quarantines during pandemics. Most recently, this was a serious issue with many health emergencies developing around the globe. California saw a significant influx of many types of childhood sicknesses that had been eradicated years ago in the United States, but were on the rise when there was limited border control. From a social policy perspective, border management oversees the rate of demographic change, assimilation, and social integration. As for international relations, border management controls diplomatic and consular access and enforces sanctions, travel bans, or visa restrictions aligned with foreign policy. In essence, immigration control is a tool of governance that balances openness and protection, allowing countries to engage with the world while managing internal needs and risks. Most importantly, entering the United States illegally is a violation of federal law. The federal law is 8 U.S. Code, paragraph 1325, titled Improper Entry by Alien under 8 U.S.C., paragraph 1325A. It is a misdemeanor offense for any non-citizen to enter or attempt to enter the U.S. at a time or place not designated by immigration officers, elude examination or inspection by immigration officers, attempt to enter or obtain entry by willfully false or misleading representation, or the willful concealment of a material fact. The penalties for violation of this law are: first offense, punishable by a fine under Title 18 or imprisonment for up to 6 months or both. Subsequent offenses, punishable by a fine under Title 18 or imprisonment for up to 2 years or both. In addition to criminal penalties, individuals apprehended while entering or attempting to enter the U.S. at a time or place other than as designated by immigration officers may be subject to civil penalties ranging from $50 to $250 for each such entry or attempted entry. But it is a felony if an individual re-enters after being deported. U.S.C. paragraph 1326. Re-entering after being formally removed or deported is a felony and is punishable by up to 20 years, depending on prior criminal history. It's important to note that while improper entry is a criminal offense, merely being present in the U.S. without authorization, such as overstaying a visa, is typically considered a civil violation, not a criminal one. However, it is still against the law and allows the government to seek removal of that individual. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has responsibility for all federal immigration enforcement, with 2 of its agencies each playing separate major roles. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, screens non-citizens entering the country and apprehends those attempting to enter without authorization. These are the detentions occurring at the border entries. In the U.S. Interior, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, is responsible for arresting, detaining, and removing non-citizens who have violated immigration laws. ICE's major role in enforcement is not at the border, but within the country. The following groups of people can be deported: individuals who crossed a U.S. border illegally or who overstayed a visa, Immigrants on a temporary visa who have violated the terms of their visa, for example by getting a job on a visa that does not permit work. Legal permanent residents, green card holders, or temporary visa holders who have been convicted of a wide range of crimes, including driving under the influence, firearm or drug possession, theft, sex crimes, or a violent crime. Unauthorized immigrants who have a valid form of temporary protection such as temporary protected status, TPS, humanitarian parole, or deferred action, including deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA, are generally not deportable. But because these statuses are granted on a temporary or discretionary basis, they could potentially be revoked, thus making individuals removable. Non-citizens arrested by ICE are typically placed into removal proceedings in immigration court. Because of limited resources, these removal proceedings usually take years before their initial hearing. While in these court proceedings, migrants may be placed into an immigration detention center or into a non-detained tracking program called Alternatives to Detention. They also could be released without tracking and required to periodically check in with ICE. The vast majority of removable migrants are not detained. ICE has generally focused its limited resources on arresting and removing migrants from the U.S. interior who pose public safety threats. Most interior removals are of immigrants who come into contact with the criminal justice system: alcohol, drugs, sex crimes, violent crimes, domestic violence. This process can be hindered when local law enforcement is prohibited from sharing their arrest records with the federal government. 79% of ICE deportations from the interior in 2021-2024 were of someone with a criminal conviction, and most removals from the interior are of migrants from Mexico or northern Central America. If there is a removal order for an individual, a person is not always deported. About 1.5 million non-citizens have outstanding removal orders. They have not been removed for a range of reasons, including that they cannot be located by U.S. immigration authorities, they are termed absconders, or because their country of origin will not accept their return. The U.S. cannot simply put deportees on planes even when someone has a final removal order. The U.S. must secure the home country's agreement to accept the deportee and arrange transportation. Removals can happen from the U.S. interior or at the border. Either an immigration judge or certain DHS officials can issue a removal order. Judges do so in an immigration court process if they find that the non-citizen does not have a basis to stay in the country. DHS officers issue removal orders in a process called expedited removal, which means the case does not go before an immigration judge, and thus can be decided much more quickly. Non-citizens with less than 2 years of U.S. residence and without a lawful status or protection claim can be placed into this removal process. Expedited removal provides some basis of due process, but not as much as a formal proceeding with an immigration court. If an individual is removed, that person is barred from re-entry for at least several years. The bars differ by category based on how the removal occurred. 5-year bar for those ordered removed through expedited removal. 10-year bar for non-citizens ordered removed by an immigration judge. 20-year bar for a previously removed non-citizen who receives a second removal order. Lifetime bar for those with repeated immigration violations or who were convicted of certain felonies. Some jurisdictions and state and local law enforcement entities fully cooperate with immigration enforcement and honor all ICE detainers, thus permitting the removal process to occur particularly when there are criminal charges involved with the arrest. Others, commonly known as sanctuary jurisdictions, limit cooperation with ICE detainer requests, depending on state and local laws and policies. Some jurisdictions will not hold removable non-citizens for ICE, but will facilitate a handoff by notifying the federal agency of the date and time that the individual will be released from their custody. The degree of cooperation with ICE can determine how many non-citizens are placed into removal proceedings from a given locality. For example, the share of ICE arrests taking place in California shrank as the state passed successive laws tightening restrictions on cooperation. So, who actually gets deported from the U.S. interior, not at a border crossing? Historically, Mexicans and Northern Central Americans, Salvadorans, Guatemalans, and Hondurans have comprised the vast majority of all removals. From 2021 to 24, these nationalities represented 87% of all interior deportations. Mexicans accounting for 63%, and Northern Central Americans another 24%. This trend has held for decades. This concentration is due in part to the fact that the United States has repatriation agreements with these four countries. The U.S. government struggles to remove non-citizens to certain countries that accept few or no returnees. In December 2024, ICE released a list of 15 recalcitrant countries with China, Cuba, India, and Venezuela on the list. That said, in 2024, ICE carried out removals and returns to 192 countries. No matter what the political implications are behind the immigration issue, it is without a doubt that all countries have a form of border management, and that if there is going to be a solution to this issue, it must be comprehensive and enforced accordingly. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel and leave your comments below. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. I look forward to our next update. This is David Demerjian for tacticsandtrials.com.